we didn't really change our lifestyle. You know, we were making decent money before we sold the business. We didn't really, I don't know, we bought her a sports car, but we did that right before we sold the business. And I think our big purchase was this boat. You know, once we got that done, we bought the boat a couple, 3 months later. But the reason we sold the business is because we wanted to go live this lifestyle and have a little more time with a little freedom with our time, right? That's what we were really looking to accomplish. I think that's the ultimate goal, more so than money, is the freedom of your time. You know, I'm no different than, you know, probably the vast majority of your listeners and other people out there, right, that own a small business. I just started a business hoping to make enough money where I could, you know, pay rent and eat and maybe have a vehicle that ran decent and, you know, that kind of stuff. I you know, that's all. You're just trying to survive when you're maybe in your 20s. And I kind of got doing that okay. And then I think I started doing a little bit better than average. So I was kind of, I don't know, I wouldn't say comfortable, but I was happy. And I saw a business that sold, that was in the same field as me, right? And they sold for an absolute grip of cash, you know, like 17 or 20 million. It was a ton of dough. And I'm like, wow, how do I do that? That sounds appealing. I think you need to understand your exit before you start building a company. And I met with them for the simple purpose of, I'd like to understand the value of my company, and I'd like to understand what they're going to want to purchase a company.
Welcome, millionaires and future millionaires. You're listening to the Millionaires Unveiled podcast, a show where you'll hear the stories and interviews of everyday millionaires. We'll unveil their decisions, their strategies, and their portfolio allocation. Now to your host, Jace Mattinson.
Welcome back to another episode of the Millionaires Unveiled podcast. This is episode number 311. Stace, what's going on? How you doing?
Doing great over here. Fill us in on what's newsy.
What's newsy is, man, we just got done watching Djokovic win number 24. Paid salute to Kobe Bryant, Mamba mentality. And, man, unbelievable to watch. Just spectacular tennis over the last couple weeks in general, but seeing the mindset and the capacity and just all sorts of things, sportsmanship, all sorts of things on full display, it was pretty remarkable. I'm definitely inspired for the week after watching that, that's for sure. Not to mention Coco Gauff won as well, so that was pretty awesome as well, but that was yesterday.
I think she's the youngest female to win the U.S. Open since Serena Williams was 19 as well.
Yeah, it's been several years. So, yeah, congrats to them. Remarkable few weeks of tennis, that's for sure.
And I'm always surprised that you cheer for Djokovic because you always love a good underdog story, but we do love Djokovic so much, and we love for him to win.
I am more of the underdog mentality for sure, with like 99% of things. But there's a few people out there, Djokovic being one of them, that I feel like has so many like haters in a way that they just don't want him to like succeed. And so I feel like there's still a bit of like the underdog. And the fact that he like succeeds so many times under so much pressure and he talks about it, it's amazing.
And I think it was Wimbledon before he lost to Alcaraz that a reporter asked him about in the post-game interview before the next match, they asked about him handling the pressure, and he said, "I love it."
Yeah,
and
that's great.
I enjoy him a lot.
A lot of great lessons you can learn from sports and athletes as it relates to finances. And today, in fact, we're reading an article together, which we don't do very often. And this article is entitled, just a couple days ago, entitled The Secret to Saving for Retirement, Start Before You're 20. So we don't have very many listeners that are under 20, but we probably have a lot that have kids. And yeah, I mean, this was really all about getting Roth set up for kids, whether it be summer jobs that they have earned income from or other sorts of things as teenagers and maybe even before that they're able to earn money, and gave several examples of these people who were contributing to their Roth IRAs, which I thought was pretty interesting. Something we've talked about a couple times on the show, but not super frequently.
Yeah, I thought it was a good article. This is something that I find myself asking in interviews often is to those who are parents, how are you teaching your children about wealth building? And some people have various accounts set up for their kids and others don't, but this one shed light on setting up Roth IRAs in particular because of their tax advantages. Your kids can start contributing for summer jobs. They can be employed by a parent who has them doing office tasks like shredding papers or whatnot. So,
yeah, for those that, I guess, parents that have businesses, it's a great way if they want to employ their kids. One of the interesting statistics I thought, so this says Roth IRAs for teens are gaining in popularity. The average age of those with custodial Roth IRAs, where an adult sets up the account with the child as a beneficiary, is 13.7 years old. It's crazy. Fidelity Investments in particular said the number of these accounts in June grew 28% year over year. So seems like it's starting to catch on. I don't know if financial literacy in general is getting better in this country or not statistically, but it seems like there's definitely people out there who are paying attention now. I guess we're, 30 some odd years into the Roth IRA, or almost 30 some odd years into the Roth IRA. And it's gaining popularity, especially amongst teenagers. 13.7 years old, that's the average age. That's crazy.
right. And then depending on the state, the kids can take over management of the account at 18 or 21.
So yeah, great article on Roth IRAs and saving for retirement before you're 20. I did get a little jump start, but not as much as I probably would have liked. Spent a little bit too much money at Taco Bell. Anyway, wanted to read a couple things. We got a couple emails this week and also a phenomenal review. We talk about this quite frequently, but people really relate to those that they can relate to on the podcast. So this comes from Nooney. This is in relation to last week's episode. It says, great episode. As a Puerto Rican that is also an electrical engineer and also under 40, I love Nora's story. Feels like my journey, but I don't have a PhD. Feeling proud of my Boricua. I hope I pronounced that right. I don't speak very good Spanish anymore, so my accent's a little more Eastern European since I lived over there. Also got an email. This came in from Jordan. He said, I know you've stopped asking a couple questions. One, what's worth spending the money on and what's not? And then also, do you budget on the rapid fire questions? I found a lot of value in those answers and really love to see those added back, at least the former if possible. Thanks for sharing your feedback and keep up the good work. Jordan, appreciate that. I will definitely try to take note of that, as we've tried to kind of mix up a little bit of the rapid fire questions and get a little different takes on different things. And, quite frankly, on the budgeting side, we found that most millionaires don't budget. And so it's kind of I don't know if it's a dumb question, but it just kind of became a rhetorical no, upwards of like 80 some odd percent who either don't budget or only budgeted for a brief period of their time. So kind of interesting statistic, but that's partly why we stopped asking that one. In regards to what's spending the money and what's not, I do think it's a great question. Sometimes we try to capture that a little bit when we discuss kind of the bucket list items and some other things, but we'll definitely try to throw it in and rotate them around and keep the rapid fire a little fresh. If you'd like to be on the podcast, if you haven't heard your story yet, send us an email, millionairesunveiled@gmail.com. Always looking for new great guests. I'm trying to figure out, I'll have to do the list again and see what professions we're missing, but at any rate, last week we had Nora's mentioned. She had a net worth of $3.5 million. Today's episode, we have Chad. He just sold his business not too long ago, and he is sailing around on a catamaran in the Caribbean, doing probably what most people think most millionaires are doing. But Chad's got a net worth of $10 million. I will make one note. I apologize. There's a couple sections where the audio is not ideal. But we're dealing with Starlink, and Elon just didn't deliver on some of the internet a couple times. So, and you're recording with somebody who's like literally out in the middle of the ocean somewhere, it's pretty sweet. It's pretty sweet to hear the story. But yeah, Chad's out in the middle of the ocean and we're recording a podcast, and it is what it is. So apologize for those couple segments. You'll notice them. But just concentrate on the content. It's a great episode with him. He's got a good chunk of this in the boat that he bought on the catamaran that he's sailing around in with his family. And then he's got kind of his land life and paid for house and all that kind of fun stuff. And then he's got a bunch in cash and liquid and retirement accounts. So we go into all the details of it. And also, we did a follow-up episode with him, which we'll release later this week, which will be kind of the second episode of this week, where we dive all things private equity, because he ended up selling his company to private equity. We get into a little bit of it in this episode, but really take a deep dive on it in the next episode that we'll release later.
I liked that he called it his land life. And I don't know that he ever referred to it as his land life, but I hope he takes this forward.
I think he does call it his land life, because he's got like a sea life, you know? And you like made the joke about him being, you know, instead of a 50,000 foot view, it's like sea level view. But I think he calls it his land life. But if not, I'll get corrected. Don't send me hate mail on that one.
No, I liked it. That was good.
So without any further delay, let's get in the interview with Chad.
Chad, you want to just give us a little about your background and what you're up to now?
Well, I guess my background is, I had a business I started back in 98. Back in the day, sold it in about a year and a half ago, maybe a little bit more than that. And we decided as a family that we wanted to live on a boat and travel the world. And we bought a catamaran, and now we're in the Caribbean, and we're looking to keep on going west until we are done doing this. I don't know how long that'll be, but we're going to keep going. It's been an adventure, to say the least.
Good for you. This is awesome. I think there's a second guest we've had on now too that sold a business and taking the catamaran life out to the Caribbean. So, and he had a successful tour. I think he was out for, I don't know, like 8 months or something. So hopefully yours is as successful as his.
So we're at a year. We've been in the water and the boat.
Oh wow!
And we're going to go back for a few weeks, and some doctor appointments and just kind of that kind of stuff, right? And then we're going to come back out for at least another year, and I think it's probably going to become a lifestyle, to be honest with you.
Wow, good for you. Before we get into some more details about your story, what's your net worth today?
I'm sitting right there at about $10 million.
Good for you. And how's that broken up?
So, I've got, I still got $1 million invested in the firm that purchased my company. I've got, I call it like my land life, I still have my house and cars and all that kind of stuff, whatever. And I got about $1 million in that. And then this boat I'm sitting on is worth about $1 million. And then the rest of it is, a little bit of cash, and then the rest is basically invested in the market in some way.
And do you have any in retirement accounts, or is it all in basically a taxable brokerage?
So most of it, I have a little bit in taxable accounts, maybe $300,000 or so between me and my wife, and that's it. Most of it's in traditional, and I'd like to take those out of traditional and put them into Roths, but I haven't had a year where I've making no money yet, but it's coming shortly. And then at that point in time, then as it makes sense from a tax perspective, I'll transfer them over to Roths and pay my tax and be done with it.
I want to get into this because this is an interesting concept, especially for somebody that's essentially retired. And for our listeners, if you don't mind sharing, how old are you at this point?
I am 52.
Okay, so early 50s, looking to do a Roth conversion ladder. How did you get your traditional IRA so large? Was that invested in your business?
Yeah, we started way back a while ago, to be honest with you. My wife had a job where she was required to put money in, and we started putting money in a little bit here, a little bit there, and then, just kind of grew over time. And then at the very end, in my business, I opened up, I did the IRA stuff and the 401k and what have you, and we just started maxing it out every single year. So a little combination of growth and, just putting a lot in.
And did you invest that and still invested mainly in equities?
Yeah. Yeah, I think all that's in equities. The 401k money, the traditional raw or the traditional 401k is all just in equities. It's pretty simple on that.
And plan is to keep doing that?
Well, I don't have any. My issue is I don't have any earned income. I don't have any way to put more money in, really, right? So I don't know as though I can put more money into that vehicle. I think I'm kind of done almost, right? Because I don't have any earned income after this year. So.
And you plan to keep it invested in equities, though?
Yeah, I'll keep invested in equities.
So in terms of living now, are you just basically pulling down income or dividends from those investments, or how do you think about your kind of go forward living and cost of living?
Yeah, I think it's going to, we're just going to start, taking money out slowly. We don't need a lot to live on for the most part, I guess. But we'll just start taking money out, and we should be able to comfortably make more money on investments than we need to take out. So, we're mostly conservative in our investments, I think. And I think we'll just hopefully take out way less than 4%. Probably quite a bit less than that, and go from there.
Good for you. So I always got to ask this question because it's always interesting for people to hear and for me. You go to sell the business, you get the wire. Talk us through the next few months. Obviously, you've got a tax bill that you've got to pay, but what was that like? Did you buy anything? How did you go about taking that one big cash inflection and putting it to work?
Well, the tax bill, that sucks. But no, I don't think anybody felt sorry for me, because they said, wow, you just made a lot of money, so you got to pay a lot of taxes, and I wish I had your problem. So I was there emotionally with the money. I was comfortable with it, and I knew it was coming, and I had already processed it, right? But my wife, on the other hand, had not, and she was struggling with it, and she's there now, but it took probably a better chunk of a year for her to understand where we were at financially. Like, she logically knew it, but like emotionally, we didn't really change our lifestyle. We were making decent money before we sold the business. We didn't really, we bought her a sports car, but we did that right before we sold the business. And I think our big purchase was this boat. Once we got that done, we bought the boat a couple, 3 months later. But the reason we sold the business is because we wanted to go live this lifestyle and have a little more time with a little freedom with our time, right? That's what we were really looking to accomplish. I think that's the ultimate goal, more so than money, is the freedom of your time.
That's awesome. So actually, I wanted to go back. I had a question about your Roth conversion. You said you were waiting until you have a year where you make no money. So for our listeners who may not be as well versed in this, why would you want to wait until you have a year where you're making no money to make that conversion?
Well, when I was, making really good money, you're in the highest tax bracket, right? You're getting crushed from a tax perspective. So you would invest in your traditional 401k as a tax shelter, basically, right? And I knew part of my strategy was put the money in there when I'm, paying 30-40% in taxes. And then when I sell my business, I won't have any earned income. I may have income from, maybe some dividends or a little bit of income from investments, but it won't be substantial. Or at least it'd be less than what it was when I was working. So then when I, take a little bit of money, maybe 50 grand a year or 75 grand a year, whatever my accountant thinks is right for the best tax advantage, then I will be in a lot lower tax bracket. And maybe I'm only paying, 15 or 20% on the money instead of 40. I mean, that's just kind of my concept. I'm not a financial genius when it comes to this at all, but it just, from 5,000 feet, it looked like that's what it should work, right? I don't know. That's my guess.
I said, I think you're sitting there at 0 feet, aren't you? You're at sea level?
Yeah, I'm at 0 feet right now, for sure.
From 0 feet, I think that's a good move then. So you've made this huge jump. You're living this boat lifestyle, which is, I have a hard time wrapping my brain around that. How are you logistically doing this? Do you have kids with you? Is it you and your wife? What does this look like for your living circumstances?
So we have I have a wife, and then I have two kids, 13 and 16. The boy's younger, the daughter's older, and we live on a boat and travel, and they do homeschool, and the funny thing is my daughter's crazy motivated. So she's actually going to graduate here this summer, a year early. So, which is phenomenal, right? And she's just crushing school. It's awesome to see. And then the last year, because we're going to keep her on the boat, even though she's graduated from high school, and she's not 18 yet, and what have you. So it would be a challenge for her to go to college, right? So we're going to enroll her into like some online college stuff, maybe part-time-ish or what have you, kind of get her used to college, and she'll do her thing there. And then when she's 18, she can go to college like kind of at the normal time. But we just travel. We started in Florida, went up the East Coast last summer, and then this year, down through the Bahamas and the Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, the USVI, the BVI, St. Martin, and now today we're sitting in Guadeloupe.
That's amazing. That's amazing. That's cool. Your whole family has kind of come together to do this. So here's a question about your daughter who's graduating. Sometimes I find when people graduate early, I've heard this before, I made a decision too young, what I wanted to study, what I wanted to go into, especially kids who've done kind of Head Start or Running Start programs. So how do you help guide her at this point where she's going to start making decisions that impact her real future, her real adult future? How are you trying to guide her to make these decisions at 16 years old, what she might be studying, or how she'll kind of move forward and set herself up for her career?
It's tough, right? Because she's a 16-year-old daughter, which is tough in itself. I think you just make everything available to them and talk about, hey, what do you think you want to do? And, we've been doing this for years, though, with both of our kids. And, hey, I want to be a NASCAR driver. Oh, I want to be a scientist. I want to do ballet. I want to sing, whatever it is, right? And you just talk to them about it. And, hey, you could probably do that. And, if you could make money maybe doing this, or, if you owned a ballet company, maybe you could make some money, or do you want to teach ballet, or whatever it is. And you just kind of explain to them, what kind of lifestyle that would be, and just go all the time. We're just talking about it. And what do you have a passion about? And that's really, I think that's the key, right? I mean, that's why another reason why I sold my business is I didn't want my kids to feel like they had to go work in daddy's business. I wanted them to go do what they're passionate about. And I think that changes a lot. I mean, when you're a 7-year-old kid, you want to be a firefighter, right? So like it changes, and I think you just constantly talk to them about it, and try to introduce them to people who maybe do those jobs right now. We had a gal that was on another boat. She did graphic design, and my daughter thought, well, that would be interesting. So we let her hang out with her for 3 or 4 hours while she did work, and showed her, what graphic design is all about, and is this something that you'd be interested in? And I think you just expose them to everything.
Nice. So those are good words of wisdom. And how do you instill work ethic in your kids right now as you're living this boat lifestyle?
A big stick is encouraged at all times. It's, when you're it's very different lifestyle on a boat. It's actually easier to incorporate work ethic because there's so much to do. And there's little jobs that they can do, and you have to be responsible. You can't just sit there, and you have to be aware of your surroundings and just be, aware of what's going on and make good decisions. So we've got them going, to land, picking up some groceries or doing all kinds of different things. We make them work on the boat a lot. So, and they respond decent most of the time. So that's pretty good. I'll tell you a quick story. We were on the hard we do some boat work in Fort Pierce over right before Thanksgiving, and we had a pile of work to do. I mean, an absolute pile of work, and a lot of it was just manual labor, right? So my kids could do it, I could do it, everybody could do it, and it was like 3 weeks. And we told them, hey, we're going to pay you $25 a day to come out here and help us all day long. And that's just the way it is, right? And it wasn't fun. It wasn't easy. None of us liked it. But we paid them for 3 weeks, and they were happy. And when we got done with the water back in the, or the boat back in the water, the foreman there that was, ran the marina, he came up to us. He goes, so I've been here doing this a long time, and I have never, ever seen kids, not one, ever, work like your kids work. I'm super impressed with how you guys are parenting your kids. I didn't tell them I was paying them, but, nonetheless, some kids don't want to work, even if you're paying them. So, and I think you just, semi-force them, bribe them, whatever. I think you have to install that work ethic into them. I think it's a requirement of being a parent. At least it is for us, right? I want them to have a work ethic. And I feel like we're getting there, for sure.
That's great. Sounds like we're sending our kids to your boat the next time you're broken down.
For sure, right? Why not? For sure. It's all fun.
So, Chad, I got to ask, what kind of sports car did you end up buying?
So, we ended up buying it's the big Mercedes, or not the Mercedes, the Lexus. I think it's LC 500. Yeah, a little convertible for my wife, and she just wanted a fancy little sports car. She's wanted one for a very long time, and she was driving a great little mom car, and she was a complete phenomenal sport the whole entire time. And I finally said, let's just go get you a car. And she wanted to go get another mom car, and we walked in the showroom, and I said, hey, look at that pretty thing. You need to go test drive it. And she just, there's literally heel marks as I dragged her to the car, and I said, you sit in this thing. I'll go get a salesman, go drive it. And she came back, and she had the absolute biggest smile on her face. And I'm like, awesome. I mean, that is what it's all about, right? If you can put a smile on someone's face like that, I was like, we'll just take it. It was that simple for me, for sure.
That's awesome. So I want to back up and just get a little bit more context into who Chad is, and maybe take us through kind of your journey the last 30 years up until selling your business.
So, I'm no different than, probably the vast majority of your listeners and other people out there, right, that own a small business. I just started a business hoping to make enough money where I could, pay rent and eat and maybe have a vehicle that ran decent and, that kind of stuff. I that's all. You're just trying to survive when you're maybe in your 20s. And I kind of got doing that okay. And then I think I started doing a little bit better than average. So I was kind of, I don't know, I wouldn't say comfortable, but I was happy. And I saw a business that sold, that was in the same field as me, right? And they sold for an absolute grip of cash, like 17 or 20 million. It was a ton of dough. And I'm like, wow, how do I do that? That sounds appealing to me. And, I'd never really known anybody that had done that. And I didn't know the guy that actually did do it. But I thought, wow, I'm going to try to look at how that happens versus what I'm doing, because I wasn't even on close to that path. And then when the ended, right, in 2008, I was dealing with a lot of contractors, and so that dried up. And for me, right, a lot of my work dried up, and I just made a transition in how I was going to run my business, and got some different licenses and started hiring some different people. I was basically a one-man show up until then, and I just told my wife, I want to blow this thing up. And I want to have the big payday. I want to try to do that. I want to see if I can do it, because I don't know. I didn't have anybody to talk to. I had my parents had never done it. I didn't have any friends that had done it. So there was a lot of trial and error and learning and researching. And I think I got to the point, I don't know, I had 7 or 8 employees, maybe not, they're around 8. And I had a Fortune 500 company walk up to me, or call me, and, we'd like to talk to you about buying your business. And it's a company everybody recognized. And I'm like, wow, that's crazy. I always felt I had 3 customers, final customer, and I wanted to learn from this guy. So we met, and he told me, what they look for in purchasing a business and what have you. And I thought, well, I'm going to see if I can't do this. And I talked to him over the years, and he gave me a lot of advice, and I followed every bit of it. And before you know it, I was up to 40 some odd employees, and I had all kinds of people that wanted to buy my business. It was exciting. I had a company come up to me, everybody would recognize their name, and it was a Fortune 500 company, and they wanted to buy my business. And I thought, well, this is cool. I need to understand. I think you need to understand your exit before you start building a company. And I met with them for the simple purpose of I'd like to understand the value of my company, and I'd like to understand what they're going to want to purchase a company. I don't want to build something and have them go, man, I wish you'd have done this instead. So I asked them a bunch of questions, and they told me what they look for and what they like and what they value more than other stuff. And I thought, well, I'm going to try to design a company that they're going to want to purchase. And my guess was that there were going to be other companies out there that wanted to purchase my company when this all is said and done. But I just didn't know at the time. I had no idea what existed out there. I truly had no idea. And I kept working on it. And the bigger I got, the more companies that came up to me and said, hey, I'd like to purchase your company. And I entertained a lot of them along the way. And, I got a few companies to send me offers, and I wanted to know what that process was like. And also, the value of my company again is, you may wait 2 or 3 years and you try it again. And they, the value kept going up and up and up. And I thought, well, this is cool. And all the different companies that I talked to, they all said the same thing. We want reoccurring revenue from a company, and we want, good solid growth, good margins, and that's kind of what we're looking for. We don't want, something, like they weren't big on the contracting world. They wanted service and what have you. So I just built it on up from scratch to what I thought they would like. And then when COVID came, that was all she wrote. It was, COVID. I know a lot of people probably struggled with COVID, and it wasn't great for a lot of people, but a lot of businesses did not get bought in 2020. And there was a lot of money that the PE firms wanted to spend. So come 2021, you had 2021 money and 2020 money, and you had like double the money as normal, and no businesses got bought in 20. So, and some of the businesses got crushed too, right, with COVID. So there was less businesses and more money, and it just, what they're willing to pay for businesses at that point in time, plus the money was cheap to borrow, is almost at an all-time low. It just made the valuations of business fascinating. It was definitely fascinating.
That's awesome. I loved how you said when you started your company, you were just trying to survive, and then once you realized there's some real value here, then is when you kind of began with the end in mind, was kind of when you already had some processes in place. So sometimes I think that can be overwhelming when you're starting a business. If you start with, I just want to build something that I'm going to sell for crazy multiple, that can feel overwhelming. But if you start with, I just want to build something to survive with, and then you've got your processes in place, and that's when you're like, wow, actually I have something that can be really, really valuable. And that's when you kind of, sharpen the saw on how you're going to move forward and create some real value in the marketplace. So that's great. So did you go to college?
I got a degree in finance, and it had an emphasis in real estate, and I kind of enjoyed that. When I did sell my business, when they went through my books, and let me tell you, they go through your books, they go through every single thing about you. It's so intrusive, it's ridiculous, but it's the process you have to go through. But when we showed up to their accounting team and they looked at my books, and they'd bought a lot of businesses, and they said, your business's books are the cleanest set of books we've looked at. It tells a story. It's very easy to read the story. We completely understand exactly why you have your book set up the way you do. And and I think some of that probably came from, having a degree in finance and kind of understanding some basic accounting. I'm not an accountant or, financial guru in any sense, but I think that kind of helped a little bit.
Did you start your company right out of college, or did you do something else first?
I basically, there's like a year or so out of college that I worked for another company, and then I started my company. So I graduated in 95, and I started my company in 98. So it was like 2 years after I graduated.
And was your company that you started, was it in the same industry as what you went into after college, or totally different?
Same industry. It was just, it was with a guy that I didn't care to be involved with. I didn't care how his business practices. So I kind of decided I wanted to do my own thing. And, I'm just a dead entrepreneur. That's just me. I don't think I could have ever worked for somebody and been happy. I'm an entrepreneur. 100% I'm an entrepreneur, and that's just what I had to do. It's who I am.
So the confidence to start your own business, it was already there, kind of intrinsically.
In college, I had a small vending machine business, and I mean small, right? I mean I had 20 or 30 small little quarter vending machines out there, and kind of did that for a few years. So that was fascinating. Really made no money at it, but it was a good learning experience, for sure. So try that for a little while.
You're not alone. That was our very first thing too after we got married. I think we made like $600.
Yeah, it's about what it was. It was fun though. I learned a lot. It took me out of my comfort zone. It was fascinating. And I just I realized that that's not what I want to do, but I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur, and I looked at a lot of the franchise stuffs out there, and a lot of them, it was a long time ago, but a lot of them just didn't make sense to me. So I don't know. I just explored around until I found something that I thought would be a good fit for me.
Chad, I have a question. As an entrepreneur yourself, how you think about that as it relates to what your kids want to do? Are you going to push them that way, or is it really just about what they're passionate about no matter what?
Man, I struggle with that. I truly would love for them to be entrepreneurs. I would even probably enjoy helping them or mentoring them on some level. But I think first and foremost, they have to be passionate about what they're doing. And, my daughter's already told me she wants to be an entrepreneur, and I'm not forcing her in any which way, but I do make them think about, take things and take them apart and put them back together and fixing things. And he enjoys that. Right. So, and he puts Legos together like crazy, and he's pretty awesome that way. And I'm like, hey, man, you could be a mechanic. That's cool. And, typically a mechanic will make, this type of money. We'd look it up on Google, right? And I'm like, hey, you could do that. Or maybe you could own the shop of a mechanic shop that, they've got 10 mechanics and what have you. And you could do that. That's an option also, Or maybe you could go be a place where they make these four-wheel drive trucks, and they trick them out and have the crazy bumpers, and they lift them, and maybe that's an option. And so you just kind of, I just explain different options to them so that they can make up their own mind. And I'm sure, he's not going to be a mechanic when he grows up or what have you. But, just putting them through the process of thinking differently is all you can do at this point in time until they decide what they're passionate.
Chad, when you were growing your business, how did you decide how much to reinvest versus pull off the table and put into, your retirement accounts or upgrading lifestyle or other things?
So we were really big fans of not upgrading lifestyle at all. We're huge Dave Ramsey people. I mean, we're really huge Dave Ramsey people. And we basically got rid of all of our debt minus our house. And she made okay money, but we were extremely frugal and lived on a very tight budget, years or better, before we started spending any, decent money. It's I remember when we got debt free, with student loans. She had some student loans and cars and all that stuff, right? We got debt free. I remember the next $2,000 we got in, we went to like Bed Bath and Beyond, and we went crazy for like a Saturday. And we got sheets because our sheets had holes in them. We got new pots and pans because they were absolutely like worse than college pots and pans. And we got towels because the towels, the threads were, they all had threads hanging from them and they were just shot. And that was literally what we lived with for the longest time because we just wanted to get debt free in the worst way and keep as much money in the business as possible.
I don't think you spent enough at Bed Bath & Beyond because they're no longer going to be around, it seems.
We just went crazy. It was kind of fun.
Well, good for you. Was that kind of the first thing that you started upgrading lifestyle-wise was things in your house?
Yeah, I think once you get to that point, you're kind of used to the lifestyle, and we knew our goal was we wanted to retire early, and we knew the more money we spent today, the longer we'd have to work and longer before we could retire, and that was a huge goal for us. I mean, I don't want to say we talked about it daily, but for sure we talked about it weekly, and it was an extreme focus for us.
Good for you. Well, let's wrap up with some rapid fire questions. What's the most expensive pair of pants that you've purchased?
Oh, I've probably got a pair of slacks in there, probably, $100, $120, but, I kind of needed them for, business, right?
Yeah, you got to meet with those private equity guys, right? Okay. What about the most expensive meal out that you paid for?
So that's at $24,000. Yeah, that was a great night after we sold the business, and I invited a bunch of friends, and we had a phenomenal bottle of wine. It was awesome. It was one of the big, huge jumbo bottles, and the so $8,000.
Wow.
We'll never do it again, but we had a bunch of people we want to say thank you to, and we just went out for a phenomenal dinner. It was worth every penny.
Good for you. How many people did you bring to that?
I think we had a dozen.
Okay, nice. Good for you. What's the most expensive car that you purchased? Or I guess boat, in your case, probably the $1 million catamaran, right?
But the catamaran is for sure the most expensive thing the catamaran is the most expensive thing I've ever bought, period, by far. And my wife's car is the most expensive car. But, we pay cash for everything. And I don't really look at it as like you're spending the money on it. As far as that, the dinner, for sure, that, that money's gone, you're never getting it back. But, if you buy a car and you drive it for a couple, 3 years, and then you get, 75% of it back, I mean, you didn't spend the whole chunk of money on that car, right? It's kind of an asset that's depreciating, and you get a chunk of it back. So
yeah, plus a lot of memories across those few years that you're driving it, right? Or in your case, on the boat, you got memories for a lifetime on that thing. Okay. What's a key lesson you learned from childhood?
Oh man. No, I think that I guess the work ethic, and I think I learned that from my parents. They're very simple people, but I learned the work ethic, and when you think it's so tough you can't go any further, you just have to find a way to keep going even though you think you can't, and you just need to persevere. And I think I learned that through my childhood and my parents and different sports that I used to do. There's some tough moments there, and I think those are all great lessons.
Awesome. Being a Dave Ramsey guy, do you use a credit card?
I recently got a credit card, but I bet you I never had a credit card in my business. We straight did debit cards and what have you, which is an absolute pain in the butt for employees and stuff. It's very unfortunate that banks don't have a better system for getting a card to your key employees that need to be able to purchase stuff. Personally, we never had a credit card for the longest time up until the last 2 years. And my business, we never had a credit card for my business. We use debit cards. And it's very difficult to get debit cards for key employees that need them to make purchases and what have you. It's a horrible system. I wish the banks would have changed it, to be honest with you. And maybe they have by now. I don't know. It's been a couple of years. So, and then I got a credit card for the Admirals Club for American Airlines because we're traveling a little bit more. And the Admirals Club is awesome. So, especially during COVID, it just gave you a little bit more room, and I really enjoyed it. So, that's the only reason I got the card, is to get $200 off the Admirals Club.
Plus, you probably end up flying first class if you travel enough, right?
Yeah, we only fly first class now, unless you can't. There's some flights that don't have that available. But we do fly first class, and like you said, how do you start spending money, and when you're comfortable with that? We literally did not fly first class ever, right up until the point where we knew we were going to sell the business, and then we flew first class the first time on a trip me and my wife took to Annapolis, and that was such a treat. It was awesome. But we had plenty of money to do it, right? I mean, I know people do it who have a lot less money, but we just could not bring in ourselves to do it. And now we're kind of getting used to it.
What's a closely held belief that you once had that you recently changed your mind on?
Ooh, man, that's going to be a tough one. A belief I've changed my mind on. So I'll tell you what it is. We went to Cuba recently, and we've been to a lot of other, countries, the DR, and you go to a lot of places that don't look great. Like if you saw them in the States, you'd be concerned for your safety. I mean, you would be really concerned for your safety if you were there. But some of these countries you go to, they're safe, but they're just poor. They're not violent, they're not criminals. They're just poor, and maybe don't always associate poor with, some place that's not safe. Because in other places, it's definitely not always true. I mean, in Havana, that was one of the safest places I've ever been.
Awesome. Well, Chad, to wrap up, what's the one piece of advice that you would give to somebody who's just starting out?
Wow, one piece of advice. I think it's kind of wrapped up into a few things. I think you need to do it. If you're thinking it, you need to do it. I think when you're doing it, you need to trust your gut. You know more than you're letting yourself believe. So have confidence, trust your gut, and then make sure at some point in time you're thinking about the end. What's my end game look like? And I think if you kind of get there with that, you'll be pretty successful.
Awesome. That's Chad, the net worth of $10 million. Thanks for coming on the show today.
Hey, thanks for having me. I really enjoy your show. I've been listening for years, and you guys are doing some great work, and keep it all up.
Thanks for listening to the Millionaires Unveiled podcast with Jace Mattinson. For more stories, investment opportunities, and information, check out our website, millionairesunveiled.com. See you next time when you'll hear from another everyday millionaire.